The broadcast is live. Here we go again.
Well, it's not a Sunday, but it's a Saturday and it's raining, so we know what that means. It's comic book time, you know. And drinking from the decapitated head of Boba. You know?
Boba Fett, the most popular character who never did anything.
Well, the cup, I found this at a Goodwill. I got it for like $1. But what kills me is I'm left-handed, and you can't drink out of it because his antenna is on the wrong side. So it's not. I get 99% of the joy of my coffee. You know.
But Boba Fett was popular for years and years and years, based just on his costume. Yeah, the cool costume.
I was that kid. I never got to see Empire Strikes Back until years later, closer to the 90s out of all of them. And of course, there's a story there. But the toy, I saw the toy and I had to have it. And I carried that toy around. I beat up a guy, Paul White, I've told the story. I beat him up to get my toy back after his mom didn't do anything about it. Beat him up in front of his mom, 7 years old. So I get my Boba Fett back. I've been playing with this thing for it felt like months. Who knows how long it was back then. I know the season changed. And then I'm in the back of an old blue car that we had, and I'm on my knees playing in the window and stuff. And then all of a sudden his rifle drops between the seat and the back of the car, never to be seen again. I was devastated. I didn't cry. I didn't tell anybody. I took a minute to realize in my head that's not coming out. And I was just sad for 2-3 days. Didn't really talk to anybody. Didn't eat too much. And I'm just holding my Boba Fett.
Your secret pain.
Yeah. So yeah, whatever happened to that Boba Fett, I'll never know. But I wasn't by choice. But yeah, Boba Fett was my favorite character. Then it blew my mind how George Lucas. I can totally get not understanding why 1 year. Oh, by the way, this is appropriate. The 40th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back happened yesterday, I think, or last couple of days. But anyway, yeah, yeah, me and that Boba Fett, we were tight there for a while.
Now he drinks out of his severed head.
Oh yeah. But it blew my mind how.
Have you watched the Mandalorian TV show?
Loved it. It loved it. I was hesitant watching it. I didn't want to get. I mean, I just went in okay, we'll see what this is. I didn't have expectations, but I don't know if anybody's seen it. But do you remember the shot where he finally gets the Baby Yoda, and it's like an old Western. It's him and 5, 10, 11 of the bad guys have got him, and then all the Mandalorians came over the horizon. Mm-hmm. And it's raining Mandalorians and stuff. I stopped my TV and I took a shot with my phone and I put it on Facebook. I went, this is classic. So I was very happy with the show, man. They did it right, man. It was a space Western, man.
Yeah, I actually liked the Prison Break episode best. That was my favorite of them. I had one friend on Facebook going, "Oh, that's an episode you can skip. It doesn't move the plot forward." I'm like, "No, you don't understand. That was the best episode." You could just watch just that episode.
Yeah. I mean, you got to have those moments where you get to know your character, because in the future episodes, you'll know what he's going to do, and you're going to be like, oh no, here we go. But Mandalorian was fantastic. It was the best Star Wars since Rogue One.
The season ender was weak, though. I mean, the last episode was weak.
Well. It did kind of piffle a little bit there towards the end, if you get what I'm saying. It did sort of.
The main problem I had with the last episode was the number of stormtroopers waiting for them at the end of the cave. Because they're like, oh, we can never escape. And then I don't even remember what someone has to sacrifice themselves so they can escape and this and that. And then there's 12 stormtroopers outside the cave. I'm like, really? Really? You could have had 200 or 300 stormtroopers out there. These 4 guys take out 12 stormtroopers before breakfast. And all of a sudden they're like, oh no, we'll never make it. They've got the drop on us. They're all outside the cave. You get out there and there's no one there. I'm like, oh, come on.
See, I could be forgiving, because that actually ties in with it just dawned on me why it took me a little bit to get into the show. You watch the original George Lucas trilogies, and it was based off of old movie serials. You know what I mean? Everything ended in a cliffhanger. So you can actually break down Star Wars with every swipe into a new scene like it's an old serial. You know what I'm saying? So the TV show comes on. It's got this weird pacing because I'm watching Star Wars and it feels odd until I get over it's a TV show. So for them to have that cheap ass ending that you're talking about, it goes back into the 30s when they didn't have enough actors and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like they would have their I remember watching one old movie serial when I was a kid on PBS, and I don't know if they were in a sub or in a spaceship, but the dude went over there and turned his a knob on it, and you could actually see the spring when it broke. and he just went on acting, like it never happened. Some dude walked in from behind that wasn't supposed to be on set, and he runs off, So yeah, to have that, I get what you're saying. It was a bit of a anticlimactic ending, but I don't know if they
should have just had more guys outside that cave. That's all it came down to. It was like there were more stormtroopers at the building holding siege to them than there were at the cave when they were all scared and going, "There's no way out. We can't possibly do it." And then it was like, "Come on, there's 12 guys there." What kind of disaster is that? 12 stormtroopers all of a sudden against 4 expert marksmen or whoever was there. I can't even remember who was there.
And we've already had a whole season of him having like bigger odds against them.
Right.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm just not as mad about it, but I'm with you. I agree.
I was just like, what? I just remember seeing that scene and going, what the heck? Because they built it up too. They were like the last episode, they're in this river cave going down the river, and outside of the cave was death. It was this mass of stormtroopers that just represented death to them. And they were like, oh, no, how can we get out of this? We're all going to die if we go to the mouth of the cave, blah, blah, blah. Remember, it wasn't a lava river, so they had no choice. They couldn't even get off the boat. So it was like, oh, well. Then you get to the mouth of the cave, and there's the dozen stormtroopers standing there picking their noses. And you're just like, really? This is
Maybe we were supposed to feel bad for the troopers because they, you already had the 2 that smacked Baby Yoda when he was in the pouch. You know what I mean? I think we were just supposed to come back to watch them. I don't think anybody believes the stormtroopers are going to win, but after smacking Baby Yoda, maybe they were like, come back so we can watch us, smack them around for what they did to Baby Yoda. I think they're going for the more, sinister side of all of us,
And they should have had like 200 other cosplayers out there or something. Anything. Matte painting. I don't know what. Give me some more stormtroopers.
Yeah, I'm sure. What is it? The 501st Legion? They're everywhere. I mean, you swing a stick at anything that even looks like a convention, and they're there with some ugly ass, cheap ass Klingons. I'm like, Okay, we got Muttman here. That's a new face.
Oh, what's up, Muttman?
He looks familiar though. I don't know.
David McKenzie, we've seen him before.
From the land of Alpha Flight. I'm assuming he's saying he's Canadian.
Yep, I think he said that one other time. I remember. At least there was someone saying they're Canadian.
And hey, I'm a big lover of the Alpha Flight. I think they're really underrated, but I kind of like how they kind of stayed at B level, no matter how you look at it, because that allowed some things to go down in the book.
I think I jumped off of Alpha Flight when he killed
Guardian,
yeah. After he killed Guardian, I was just kind of like, eh.
They did some cool stuff with Heather. The only time that I ever really got mad at Alpha Flight was where they're trying to say that Aurora and North Star were actually, they weren't mutants, they were half elves or half fairy. They brought in Loki. I'm like, what is going on here? And then bless his heart, I think it was a Bill Mantlo story, and people love me but Bill Mantlo, and I don't want to talk about him, but the guy needs to go back to ROM. I think his sci-fi stuff and Micronaut stuff is his place.
I think I just saw that Bill Mantlo's brother died. The one who's been taking care of him all these years.
Yeah, and and that's really sad because I saw pictures of Bill Mantlo in the place he's being taken care of with his brain injury. And we're going a little bit more into my area where how I work and stuff. And yeah, it's sad. It is so sad.
Yeah. I just didn't expect his brother to die before him, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Friar Tuck, a friend of mine when I was a kid, lost his Dengar in the Hudson River, so I can feel your devastation of losing the Boba Fett blaster. This is how you know there's good people out there. You know what I mean?
What part of the Hudson River? I'm in the lower Hudson. That's easy to stuff in. That's the big part of the Hudson.
Well, I can't. I know. Well, if no, I can't really think of any metal parts on any Star Wars figures. I know the GI Joe had the screw in the back, but I was getting ready to say, river fishing with really strong magnets is becoming big again. And all this stuff. And so who knows? Maybe you'll have some luck, Jared. You'll find a bike and a Dengar. We'll get all right. So Scott is here. Scott, just to let you know, I love how I had to talk personally to Scott every now and then, but my phone, this new phone, does not give me alerts when I have Messenger or Instagram or anything. I have to routinely check it. I was going to go to Verizon.
You've got a Scott Connor filter on your new phone. Is that what you're telling us?
It's an app. It's on the Play Store. Toki Death Hammer, the man who I know has hit that bell like everybody else, he is there. If we ever do T-shirts, Toki Death Hammer gets one for free. Just saying. Will it fit? I don't know. But we'll see. You get a free. Yep. Okay. It's like an echo in there. All right. So
upper north of Albany. Okay. I'm down at the Haverstraw Bay, so that's
Scott said it's a free app too. So.
You could lose your life in my part of the Hudson. People, it's I don't know if you know how much you know about the Hudson River.
I've seen it, but I don't know anything about it.
But it's a tidal river.
Okay.
Which means that the ocean tide comes up at one part of the day and comes down at another part of the day. So you can have like the two sides of the river flowing in one direction and the center of the river flowing in another direction. And people often don't realize how dangerous that is. And they'll go, a lot of people go on their boats up the Hudson. Yeah, lots of dead bodies. And they'll go off swimming off their boat and get swept away. So you got to be careful on this part of the Hudson.
Wow. Man. I remember when I discovered, I always thought it was like some people exaggerating, or maybe it was like one or two freak occurrences. But the Mississippi has sharks in it down towards the south there. Not just them getting confused and going upriver and getting lost. No, they live there. There's just enough salt water right there.
Right. It's a tidal river too, isn't it?
Yeah. I've never heard the term tidal river. I mean, if I have, it's probably been since high school, but it sounds like the same thing. But I was, as a kid, I was sitting there picturing, I've seen some snapping turtles up here that get pretty big and stuff. So I was picturing these great big huge battles with snapping turtles and sharks when I was a kid. And I'm not gonna lie, at my age, I still think it sounds pretty cool. I'm like, oh man, you got some this Hudson River thing.
It's used to be the center of the 13 colonies.
Did you know we have the New River around here? It's like it's second oldest river in the world. Yeah, I knew that. And it's also the New River we have here is just like the Nile River. It flows in the opposite direction of all the other rivers.
It flows north.
Yeah, I end up. I usually, if I go kayaking, there's the Clinch River and the New River, and if you go kayaking, all these bodies of water around here are the same.
Speaking of the Nile, did you know to the ancient Egyptians, south was up and north was down?
Yeah,
how we think of the world as north being up and south being down. That's why Lower Egypt is above Upper Egypt. So it's like
it reminds me of the Who song, "The Hub Substitute." I lived on the north side of town, but the sound was really south. The Who went to Egypt and wrote a song. All right. Well, just kind of transition there before, I want to have to learn that as soon as you get on here, I just need to go ahead and start, because we have those little, 2-minute to 10-minute conversations. That's actually good stuff, But, we're talking about things we've read, or what we bought here. I was talking about this. We can just go backwards if you want with what we talked about.
Sure.
But anyway, yeah, this completes the Sandman.
Pull the scope.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I bought, I'm doing this thing where I'm getting on eBay a little bit, and I'm trying to be careful not to nickel and dime my money, But I found this cheap with free shipping. It's a hardback, and it's one of the few times where the dust cover just gets in the way of how nice the book is.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm a sucker for simplicity, saying so much. Plus, pre Craig Russell, what needs to be, But this cracks me up because if I've read this right, I was telling you, this came out as a prose novel, and I couldn't get that through my head. Probably around the early 2000s, and it had a famous Japanese artist on it. And I was actually excited because I knew the guy's work, but it's kind of like Tardy and stuff. I know who these people are, but you can't find anything. Tardy from France and all that stuff, right? So for years, I dodged getting it because I was trying to find it in comic book form. Turns out it was a prose novel, and then Craig Russell does what he does best. He just takes a novel and he's able to translate it into a comic book with no problem.
Right.
That's what I think happened here.
I have another Neil Gaiman one that he did. I can't remember the name of it now. I got it like 15 years ago. It was another Neil Gaiman story about angels that Craig Russell adapted into a graphic novel.
Oh man,
I have no idea what the name of it is.
I can see the angels, but I might be thinking Bad Omens or something when it comes to Gaiman. He's played around with mythology and angels so much. I'm gonna look that up, see what that is.
Yeah, matter of fact, I just got a new one for Christmas.
But what's wild about this is that the way I've read this is that this isn't even really an original Neil Gaiman story. He took a traditional Japanese fairy tale that fit in with his Sandman stuff and just kind of weaved it in there.
I have not read this one yet. The Problem with Susan and Other Stories, which is Craig Russell, and actually it's got Scott Hampton, Paul Chadwick too. Like I said, I'm not actually a Neil Gaiman fan, but I'm a Craig Russell fan. So I picked this up.
Yeah, murder mysteries. I was saying murder mysteries. You think that's the book?
Murder mysteries? Is that the angel one?
I don't know. He just kind of popped out there. Yeah, Neil Gaiman, he's one of those guys that he's never wrote anything I hated. I mean, I've got some short stories that I didn't realize I read that were his when he was first starting out. I got a bunch of short stories in this book called Bangs and Whimpers or something, and it's all apocalyptic stories, and Gaiman's in it. So he's like I said, he's never wrote anything I hated. But I mean,
he just doesn't write stuff that interests me. I mean, I think he's a good writer.
Yeah.
Like the Murder Mysteries one was about angels at the beginning of time or something, and they're contemplating good and evil and this, and I'm just like, I just found it tedious, but I loved the Craig Russell artwork.
Oh yeah. Yeah, when I got I picked up his hardback book when I was a junior. I think it was summer before I was going in to be a senior. But I got Bad Omens, which is a TV show now on Amazon. I never watched the TV show when I had Amazon. I don't know why, but anyway. I ended up reading that twice over the summer because it felt like Douglas Adams taking on the Omen, the devil. You know what I mean? It felt like but he wrote it with a guy named Terry Pratchett, so I never figured out what was Gaiman and what was Terry. Where'd that humor come from?
What it is Neil Gaiman likes writing archetypes a lot. He enjoys that, and I just don't.
Mm-hmm.
I just find archetypes kind of dull and boring, and I find them sort of an excuse for not coming up with characters. But he likes them. He likes exploring archetypes and twisting them and putting his own spin on them. So it's not like I think he's bad. I just don't like that.
Well, you just said what I was going to bring up. To me, I'm one of those guys, and I don't apologize for it, but I won't read Lucifer because the devil should never be, in my mind, the protagonist. He should be the antagonist. He's the bad guy.
Right.
Making sympathy for even the sympathy for the devil song by the Rolling Stones bothers me. You know what I mean? I'll listen to it stuff, but
you're not really supposed to have sympathy for him in that song. I'll have you know.
He's evil. He's one of anyway. But the thing about it is that when I read Seasons of the Mist, I never read anything like that. He was taking mythology and religion and mixing all this stuff up, and I started figuring out that he was really pulling from good places and, like you said, putting a spin on it. But he had that page where Lucifer looks at Sandman, hands him the key, and is like, everybody blames me for a lot. Like I'm on their shoulder telling them to do stuff. I don't have time for that. And I was like, that was kind of a bit of a revelation for me. And I actually had to do a little search in there, like, am I letting him off the hook? And I'm like, you know what I mean? I'm like, He got me thinking. He got me thinking, which is good. All jokes aside,
Right,
but he
right.
really, that to me that gets into personal accountability about what you do. People are thinking that they'll be forgiven because they want to be punished instead of just not doing something bad. I mean, I can go on and on, but it was exactly the kind of writing I like that made you think.
The Sympathy for the Devil song just struck me. You're right about one that even though you're not supposed to have sympathy for the devil in that song, just writing a cool rock and roll song about the devil kind of glorifies him a little and makes him less evil.
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah. I mean, that was a weird time for the Rolling Stones because what was that album? They were kind of giving you the impression they were getting into the occult a little bit there. They wrote a song called Stray Cat Blues on the same album, I think. Sheet from Tip here, where if you listen to the songs, he's telling, it starts out, I hear the click clack of your feet on the stairs. I know you're not scared-eyed bunny. He's telling her to come up and bring a friend. And then he says it in the line of the song, we're like, I know you're just 14 years old. He's singing to a little girl. And I always thought that was Mackenzie Phillips he was singing to. He waited till she was 18 to bed her. And I always thought that song was about her.
Speaking of the devil, he's not in this book.
Nice.
Even though I thought he was for a moment. Here, we'll show you this without it, because I also like this without its book jacket. Oops. There's your two characters. Awesome. There's one. There's the other.
Flip it around again. That front page. He looks like Robert Smith of The Cure in his young days, or the dude that sings for Echo and the Bunnymen. I mean,
well, he's a young artist. He's a sculptor. There's a shot of him right there.
Nice.
And what's funny is in the very beginning of the book, he's actually a sculptor who had some success at right out of college, like at 20 or 21, and because he found a benefactor, like a fine arts benefactor who championed him. And then he somehow pissed off this benefactor who just badmouthed. The benefactor just abandoned him then. So his whole career went down the toilet. So now he's 25, 26 in this, and he's just miserable. So he ends up the guy doesn't even identify him at first. He's like, "Who are you?" He's like, "You know who I am." So I thought he was the devil, but he wasn't the devil. He ended up being Death. So he makes a deal with Death that he'll be able to sculpt any material with just his hands, but he's going to be dead in 200 days if he takes the deal.
Oh, wow. Oh, man.
So he's such a miserable sod that he takes the deal. So now he's got 200 days to become a famous artist and leave his legacy. And he meets this girl along the way. Who's just, this nice girl who's a bit troubled herself. But it's I would have to say the first half to 2/3 of the book, I wasn't that fond of, only because the two lead characters were
dislikable.
I didn't feel much sympathy for them.
Yes. Yeah.
So I was just kind of gee. And also because he keeps failing, even though he's got this power to sculpt that, he still keeps failing, and he's a miserable, he's a miserable guy who just cries in his own. Yes, by Scott McCloud. Did I not say that? Yes. But the back third of it, once he hits the last few weeks of his life, is just spectacular and spectacularly done. It really ramps up the pace and ramps up everything that's going on and hit you with some twists, and it's just spectacular. So it's it's really, really good. So it's tough to get into at first, but then wow.
I'm glad you got the same energy talking about the ending that you did before we went on air, because I was about to say you should have seen him when we were talking about it. The ending that got there, because you could tell when you first talked about the book, you could tell you were struggling, and then you started talking about
right. Yeah. Then the ending is just boom. It's like Scott McCloud, the master, at work.
I tell you why I stick with some books, because I will take a good ending over a bad beginning any day. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the deal with me. I I've labored through some stuff. I got 3 or 4 books here that still got the bookmark right there where they haven't been touched in 10 years. I mean, I went through It by Stephen King to make sure to finish this because it had been a journey since the 80s. And I finished it about 2 years ago. When I got to that ending, I mean, I don't know who's read the book, but Beverly's husband, how he ended that little part of the story, it was just downhill from there. He just decided, I got to start ending some shit.
I read it, but so long ago, I don't remember it.
Yeah, well, it's okay. Yeah, I mean, it's okay. When I finished it, I was glad I finished it, but I was like, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Tough to get going, but wow. Yeah, there's a lot of talk of Sandman right now because of that show coming up. I don't really have a lot of faith in the show that's coming up, but he's working. But they have an audio of Sandman, an audiobook through Audible.
I saw that.
Play.
Yeah.
Comes out in June, and I'm there. I don't know how Audible works, but I'm buying that thing. James McAvoy is going to be Morpheus. I mean, they brought in some big-time actors to bring in. And then I had a buddy who just commented real quick on Facebook where he was like, Martian Manhunter was in Sandman. And I'm just like, I didn't want to go. I felt a little, I felt that little snob come out of me. Like, and I was like, Tim, I've been chilling out since then, But yeah, they announced all the actors and I want to be there for it. We got John here. John has made his way in there.
Victor Thomas and Paolo Costa.
I want to mix it up here a little bit. I've had this since the early 90s. I think I actually ended up buying this for a discount, if you will, from the comic book shop I worked in.
And what are those covers?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was ready to talk about them. It's Conan the Barbarian, Roy Thomas, Fraser Smith.
10th anniversary covers?
Yeah, the 10th anniversary covers.
There we go.
And it's the first appearance of Elric.
Yeah.
Meeting Conan. And I can go on and on about why this was significant. But I read this with fresh eyes during this past week, and absolutely nothing happens. It's the Marvel style. Our heroes meet. If you don't know the backstory of Elric and Conan, about why it's significant, it doesn't really, I didn't think it had an impact. But Barry Windsor Smith, I actually did some research. The reason Elric isn't in his cool armor and he looks like a freaking garden gnome here is because reference material, somebody had put out one of the original novels had him dressed like this instead of in his armor with his dragon helmet and all that stuff. But it's the Marvel formula. They meet, they fight, both are in misunderstanding, then they unite, and then Elric goes home. Conan picks up with one of his books. This happens in between. Doesn't mean anything. Nothing happened. It meant nothing. Great art.
Journey.
But Elric was actually designed to be the exact opposite of Conan by design. Like Conan, okay, I want to make him the opposite, But there was a few good little remarks there. Like if you knew the books and stuff, I'd say you were just drooling, And this was like in the 70s, so I know it was new and you couldn't believe you were actually seeing Moorcock. But but the only reaction I had the same as when I finally found the books in the 90s was, what's he wearing? I was like, a little bit of a missed opportunity, but I got a ton of Elric stuff, so it's been made up for, yeah. So, but I guess it was cool. I mean, early 70s. I'm one of those guys that thinks the Bronze Age started when Conan got his book, not when Gwen Stacy died.
Yeah, I read Elric comic books before I read the books.
Yeah.
I don't think I read the books till my late 20s.
I started reading. I read my first Elric book, the first 50 pages when I was 5. I didn't understand it. I lied. It freaked my mom out that I was reading a real book, and I was like, "He's sitting on his ruby throne, Mom."
I had a friend who I worked with at Marvel lend them to me. He was like, "You never read the Elric books? Oh, you got to read them." So he just loaned me his, and he'd been an Elric fan since he was a teenager. And after reading Elric, I'm like, wow, no wonder teenage boys like Elric. This is full of angst.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's awesome. And I know it's like 50 years on, but it had the perfect ending. I liked his arrogance of how he thought he could control the sword, his addictions and our vices. I mean, I got what he was saying. I could go into it. But the way he went out, I was like, that's exactly how it should have ended. And people don't get Elric's not a hero. He's written in a way where you think he is. Yeah, Elric should trust Conan. Nobody should trust Elric. He comes off like a hero, and then the further along you get in there, you're like, oh no,
And after I read those Elric books, I finally understood when people would say that Jim Starlin's Warlock was Marvel's Elric. He was really influenced by Elric.
Oh yeah.
I'd always read that, but since I hadn't read the Elric books, I didn't really know that.
Yeah, he puts Lords of Order, Lords of Chaos in there, brought in the Magus.
He's got the Soul Gem, which takes people's souls.
Nice. Yeah, it's Stormbringer in the gym. It was fantastic. I love Jim Starlin. I didn't make the connection of the Elric thing when I was a kid, but I loved it. And I just thought
I always read that. I mean, I had always read people making that connection, but since I hadn't read the Elric books, I didn't really get it.
The Lords of Order and the Lords of Chaos, I thought he just stole that part of it. I didn't catch how he had changed the character and the Soul Gem. It just didn't register when I was a kid. But yeah,
I'd read so much Lords of Order and Chaos stuff that that part didn't even really strike me as being stolen from Elric, because there's just so much of that in pop culture that. But like the Soul Gem is, and just the matter of fact, I just read last night before bed. I picked up because though I bought the I think I got it for like $3. From Amazon, the digital edition of the complete Warlock. And like I pick up and I read an issue every now and then digitally just for the heck of it. And I read one last night, and they had a full page. I think it was issue 12. It was the Pip the Troll issue, but they had like a full page of Warlock Elricking out as he sits on an asteroid and ponders his life.
I know what you're talking about. I think it's like in Fantastic Four 120 or something where they're bringing Galactus back again and stuff, but it opens up a Silver Surfer doing the same thing on an asteroid in orbit around. I remember thinking that, like, what's he doing? He's thinking about good and evil on this world. Are Moorcock books good? I've always been hesitant to start them. I think they're good.
Yeah, but the Elric ones are.
Yeah, I like Corm. There's a character named Corm, but just to let you know, it deals with the Eternal Champion in multiverses. Every dimension has an Elric who's a champion, and Corm is a version of Elric, and they got a brutal one who always gave me an idea he was Russian, where he's walking around with that bear skin and stuff. Eric, and he's just brutal one. I read a little bit of his books and stuff, and he gets into like the violence this guy does by accident. But Corum, Corum, I actually kind of like him a little bit better than Elric. I think it's because it's simpler, more straightforward stories.
Yeah, the Elric books will really get you in touch with your inner 16-year-old, full of angst and drama.
Yeah. It's because he has a conscience, and his people don't have a conscience, and they're looking at him like, what's he doing? What's wrong with this guy?
He's always questioning himself and the world and this and that.
But he has no problem being in love with his cousin, Yeah.
The royalty.
God, that's probably the worst Elric story I've ever read, and it took me a while to track those issues down.
I don't remember them. I was buying Tom Strong back when Tom Strong, when Alan Moore was writing it, but I think he stopped writing it at some point, and I stopped buying it.
Yeah, Alan Moore had the big time writers at the time were coming in and writing Tom Strong issues after like issue 20 or something. I don't know. But in the Michael Moorcock, anything that is published about Elric, Michael Moorcock has a hand in, and it's canon. He says this goes. That's why I keep the comics. Anything written anywhere about Elric goes with the books, And that Tom Strong one, I had to track it down because all the Elric fans had bought him up. People don't,
Right.
I finally got to reading them. I sat down and Jerry Ordway's doing the art, and I'm all excited. And I read this thing, and I'm like, "What the shit is this?" It was so bad. Oh, what we got here? Kane of Old Mars stories. I haven't read those, I don't think.
I don't even know that one. The Cane of Old Mars. Is that Moorcock?
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Apollo Goddess again.
Oh, I'll have to tell 70s era comics. I had a discussion once with, who was it? An editor at Marvel, Corey Settlemeyer, who does all the such a great job with all the Masterwork stuff.
Yeah.
But he's, I don't know, what is he, 10, 15 years younger than me? So he was like, oh man, he thought reading that, he hated the 70s Starlin Warlock. He's like, oh man, that's so corny. He was like an Infinity Gauntlet guy. And I'm like, really? Infinity Gauntlet? That's just watered down Starlin right there.
Yes. Starlin, I think Starlin had gotten a little bit older. You know what I mean? And he didn't have that, young man's fire in him. You know what I mean? Like, a little bit more settled coming into this. And I think I always kind of wondered if what happened at DC over him killing Robin and getting blackballed there a little bit kind of made him like, I'm going to write something safe, But to me, I've read some Thanos and stuff. And when it comes to Thanos and Adam Warlock, if it's not Starlin, I can't handle it. You know what I mean? It's one of the few characters that I think.
If it happened past Thanos' death in that Avengers Annual, I'm not interested in.
Yeah. It just kind of gets me how Thanos became more popular than Adam Warlock, because I would have thought as a kid it would have been the other way around. It was a Kirby creation, first of all, and then they played around with it. Yeah. Oh man. I got a mini series. Remember those reprints that Marvel was doing in the '83 and DC was doing them too, but they just came out with like these 2 to 4 issue little mini series of reprints on the extra paper.
Right.
They did Warlock twice. I have 2 different sets of mini series that lock in together, and I never noticed because
they did Warlock and they did Captain Marvel that locked together.
Okay.
That's what it was. So first they put out the Starlin Captain Marvel stuff and the Starlin Warlock stuff.
Yeah.
But what just popped into my head, the last time I read Starlin and I think it was the early 2000s. What book was it? It was like Mystery in Space he was doing.
Oh,
I forget the main character, but he was like treading over all that 70s ground again. He had like the Universal Church of Truth in there and this other stuff. What was that?
Well, he did Strange, and people can pop in here because but what he did is he took 2 DC old titles from the 50s for their sci-fi books, Mystery in Space, Strange Adventures. I think it was 2 miniseries that locked together. He had Captain Comet.
2 stories in the Mystery in Space book, like one by him and one by someone else or something like that.
I don't remember, but he brought the Weird back. He brought his 70s creation with Bernie Wrightson back in the Weird. And Ollie's actually had those miniseries on sale, like in the trades. And I almost got them. I went back and forth going in, but the second one, they ran out of story and they just reprinted 4 issues of the Weird from the 80s. And I'm not going to lie, I was there. I didn't like the Weird.
I actually got those. That was the first time I read the Weird, was when I bought those 2 trades of the Starlin Mystery in Space stuff.
Yeah, but they were good. But like I said, I felt like that's what you said is probably why I didn't get them. I mean, just the bottom line, it not drag it out. But I really feel like he was just doing what he did at Marvel when he's doing it with these odd.
Oh yeah,
he got an odd assortment of DC characters to do it.
Yeah.
I
hadn't read Starlin in so many years, though. I found that refreshing that he was treading over the same ground he treaded in the 70s.
I've told the story before. There was 2-3 years there at Heroes Con where the first time I met Starlin, he was beside a James O'Barr, and James O'Barr freaked me out. So when I turned around and saw Jim Starlin, the legend, I'm like, I can't do this, and I walked away. Like I just had a moment. I was tired. I was hungry. It was the 3rd day of this con. I was weak, man. I was weak. But the next several years there, I'd go outside to take a smoke break, and Jim Starlin would be beside me, and the etiquette is don't bother them when they're not behind the table. Right. Long story short, I asked him how South Africa was, because that's where his wife's from. And I was like, "Your trip went."
You froze on us for a second. All I heard was South Africa.
Oh, his wife is from South Africa, I think. So I just asked him, "How was your trip to South Africa?" And he kind of looked at me. I was like, "I follow you on Facebook. I'm really wanting to know how your trip was." So we never really exchanged names. I got one picture of him sitting there smoking and stuff. But for 3 years at Heroes Con, he was my smoking buddy. We never talked comics. We would talk 5 to 15 minutes at a time, maybe twice a day. You know what I mean? If it worked out. So that third year, I decided I was going to leave him alone. It was in the back of my mind. I'd quit smoking again. I was starting to get in shape. And I come up an escalator on the first day, did it or something. And I see old Starlin there looking out the doors where we go out, where we usually smoke. It's a bunch of glass doors, glass walls all the way down, the opening of it. And he's old school cool. When I saw the way he walks, looks like he's got a little bit of that 70s bounce to him. But he turned around and he saw me coming up the escalator. Our eyes met, and he was like, "Oh," and he tried to act all cool when he went back out there. He was looking for me. I go to Baltimore Con 2 years ago, and he's up there. And I go outside. I don't think I'm smoking it this time. And he spots me and he grins real big. I'm so wore out and tired. I just look at him and I shake my head like, "Not today." So that's my Star Wars story. We're not friends. We're not buddies. I never took advantage of it. I didn't know.
Brushed off Jim Starlin. Oh, boy.
The first time that we talk comics, I'm going to turn into a fanboy. I want to keep some dignity. And watching him make some money off of these movies. The first couple of times I met him, it was a do-rag and a great big huge button-up black shirt and some jeans that didn't fit, and he would just kind of cruise on down there waving his hand behind his ass, like old 60s style. And then all of a sudden you see him at Baltimore Con, he's got a turtleneck. Yeah,
we'll bring up this too. This is the other one. I've just started reading this. I haven't read this. This originally ran in the back of Peter Baggs' Apocalypse Nerd in like 2007 to 2009. And it's just short comics about the founding fathers and them getting into arguments and being cranky and being funny. And I remember, if you're a fan of history and a fan of Tom Paine in The Ass, then this is good stuff. Like I actually bought this is the collected edition, which I bought when did this come out? The collected edition came out in 2016, and I've never read the collected edition. Yeah. So I actually haven't read this in 13, 14 years. So I'm looking forward. I just happened to spot it on my shelf. Some of it's in color. Some of it ran in Dark Horse Presents Volume 2, I think they said, too. And I just can't wait to get into this. This is going to be fun because I remember enjoying these a whole lot.
Yeah, my brother was into Pete Bag. He introduced me to Hate. He handed me a trade I still have. Hate
is an amazing piece of work when you read it from beginning to end.
Well, you jump in there because for people that haven't read it, basically it was Pete Bag's adventures in college is what he's pulling from. Right.
That's only in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because much like something like the Savage Dragon, the characters in Hate have aged in real time.
Yeah.
So that I had one friend, I remember he wrote something like, the great American novel of the 20th century or the 21st century has been written and it's called Hate. So when you sit down and read Hate, it's really the story of Peter Bag's life.
Yeah.
I'm not Peter Bag, the Buddy Bradley's life. Peter Bag's the author.
Yeah.
And like I said, and as he said, as Peter Bag always refers to the cool early issues of Hate, then it stopped being cool because Buddy Bradley grew up. So it's about the story starts in the Bradleys in Neat Stuff when Buddy Bradley was a teenager. And then Neat Stuff ended and he immediately launched Hate, which is the story of Buddy Bradley when he moves to Seattle. So this is, he became sort of the official cartoonist of the grunge movement sort of thing. That's how he was packaged.
I never heard that. I never heard
that. Oh, yeah. That's who he was. He was, because it was Seattle. It was the early 90s. It was young people drinking and going to parties. He became a band manager at one time.
Oh man, that's
But,
hilarious.
but then, as the '90s moved on, he moved back to New Jersey, and he basically tried to start his own business, his own collectibles business. And like the last book that came out maybe 10 years ago, he was like 40, and like some of the stuff from his past was still haunting him, and there's plot lines that got, it's just so well done. And it's just like, and he never had an easy time of it, but he's generally kind of a likable guy, even though he's very flawed.
Well, there's times where I think that a writer can put in something that feels honest when you're reading it. I think, okay. With Hate, and I was kind of reading it, and I was like, he's trying to be funny, he's trying to be cool. I mean, I was getting it, but every now and then you'll have something happen in a story that they pull from that maybe it elevates it, lets you know that this is something special. Yeah. Madman, when Madman was laying in a field talking to God, that blew my mind. In a comic, characters talking to God, it's wild, right? But with Peter Bag's Hate, it was something that I knew a girl like this. That was the problem. It got real. It got that slice of life, but it was all kind of, the way I remember it is all funny and him being goofy and all the stuff. Then he gets into this dorm with this girl, and she's like nuts talking to him. And then she flips over on the couch and puts her butt in there, like if you want it, after being all crazy and stuff. And he just out. And I know how that sounds, but when you're reading it, that slice of life, I was like, Stephanie, I was like, I know this girl, and I heard the same story from several people, and I'm like, this is real. That's what convinced me it was real, and he did some really honest writing there. He didn't try to make her come off as crazy. He just showed how sad of a person she was. Right. You could tell he felt bad for her.
And the part of Hate that stuck with me the most too was Stinky. Did you get that far in the book? It's a bit of a spoiler if you're reading Hate, but it's early on. He's got this one friend, Stinky, who's like the co-star of the book for the first good part of it.
Yeah. Oh God. Like I said, I haven't read this stuff since the early 2000s when my brother gave me the trade. So yeah.
But then at one point in the book, I forget what part of the story, halfway, like Stinky ends up dead.
Yes.
And you don't know if he killed himself or not.
Well, I mean, I know I read this. Hold on. Let me see what Stinky looks like. I read it. I think this is the trade that I have.
Right. And it's just such a shocking scene because they're out goofing. I think they were back in Jersey, and when he's in Jersey, they like go out to these dune area and they screw around out there. Sometimes they shoot guns out there. Sometimes they hang out. They do whatever. But at one point, Stinky is like, "Hey, buddy, check this out," and shoots himself in his head, dead. And it's just like, and Buddy's just shocked. He's like, "What?" He doesn't know if Stinky meant to kill himself. But then Buddy's like, well, I'm gonna. So he ends up just like burying Stinky out in the dunes, I think it was, and then that just kind of haunts him the rest of his life.
I'm actually trying to pull it up a little bit here. Yeah. Here he is. Let me share this real quick.
But that part of Hate was just like, well, yeah, there's Stinky.
Yeah,
and he was kind of his loser, degenerate buddy who was always getting him into trouble.
Yeah, this is what I read back in the day.
Yeah,
this is from the same trade. But yeah, I remember wondering. No, I just assumed Stinky killed himself. I just assumed it.
Yeah, but you're not really sure.
Yeah,
you think he did. And Buddy was never really 100% because he was such a screw up that he either killed himself on purpose or accidentally, and you just don't know.
Yeah, like I said, it took forever. It took forever for my brother to talk me into reading it, and then, like I said, it had the slice of life moments in there and stuff. But yeah, the thing about Stinky,
it's an all-time classic for me. I think since I've been taking books out of the library where I was this winter, before the library closed, I actually took out the Hate omnibus, which is like the first 25 issues or something, whatever it is, just to read it all in that form. Because I have all the issues I can always read.
Well, I'm keeping myself from jumping to my shelves over here because I know it's in one of them, but I'm not going to do it right now. I'm not going to do that. Man, I never Peter Bag Hate, man. The places we go sometimes, I'm like,
I mean, it's just an all-time classic. If you were to put, if you were to make a list of top 10 comics of all time, Hate would be in there somewhere for me.
I put Hate kind of beside of American Splendor a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, just because it's got those slice of life moments. I know it's, you just talked about it being about this guy's life and memories and stuff.
Right.
But I mean, I think it's right up there with the stuff Harvey Pekar did. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, when you read some of it, like I said, what was getting me is I'm seeing these cartoon characters and it's kind of being goofy. It's kind of reading like this guy wanted to do a strip and then all of a sudden, bam, all that angst and that girl going nuts, and you just knew it was real.
Friar Tuck just asked, did Stinky know the gun was loaded? That's a good question. He was firing the gun beforehand, but Stinky is such a screw-up character that he very well could have thought the gun was loaded. He could very well have been wanting to kill himself, or he could very well have accidentally done it. You just don't know.
Well, I'm doing that thing where I remember the feelings. I'm not remembering the story, but I just remember having no question that,
Yeah, you thought I remember thinking that too. But then later on, Buddy questioned it and made me question it.
Well, was he going through the stages of grief? Did he hit denial? You see what I'm saying?
Who knows? It came out, and it also came out of nowhere. Stinky was in no way, shape, or form suicidal before that moment. So it was just kind of like, that's why the shock stayed with me.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to get into it, but usually it's when the people seem fine and the happiest are the one you ought to be watching.
You never know.
Yeah. Oh, well, we've done our job here.
Yeah.
All right. That I'm going to try to keep, I have Hate and I have Ralph Snart. I'm going to try not to like go digging for those and get on eBay and find out more about Stinky, Going over here, we talked about this. Like I said, I'm doing this thing where I've ordered a couple of novels on eBay. I'm trying not to.
Your volume got lower.
Is that better?
Yeah, I think so. All right. Your volume just got low all of a sudden.
It's storming out here, so I'm not surprised by anything. But yeah, I've been going back and getting some books I read in high school and stuff, right? And this is the Peter David, Howlin' Mad. This came out in '89. I think he had a book before this about a night or something, but this is hilarious. This is one of those funny books that, I mean, like, go get. But basically, we know what happens when a werewolf bites a man. They turn into a werewolf. But what happens when a werewolf bites a wolf? And this wolf lives in a zoo, I think. And every full moon, he starts turning into a man. And he learns about cable TV and dating. It gets into him walking around naked, trying to understand clothes and all this stuff. You get a wolf's perspective of being a man. And it's got some other pretty funny characters in it, like I was telling you about the vampire that I love. That's what I remember about the book. But some of these older novels, you had John Byrne's Fear book. That's the next one. You had a little wave of comic book writers getting some novels published. Peter David, I know he writes Star Trek novels and stuff, but in the early '80s, I think he had one book before this, maybe. And then all of a sudden you had John Byrne's Fear book at the same time that came out a few years before that. And then Chris Claremont after that had his First Flight books come out. And I couldn't make it through Chris Claremont's First Flight books because what was cool is when you open it up and it goes to the thank yous, he names all the X-Men by name, by the real name. Thank you guys. But you start reading First Flight and you're sitting here like, what the hell? Is this a freak? He's more wordier than he is in his comics. And it didn't feel like it was going, maybe he had a good ending, but I read one book, couldn't finish it. I don't know how many he had of them, but there was an era there where I was picking up these books because the comic book guys were making it, And Peter David had been on the Hulk there for a while. So,
did you ever read those Marvel novels from like the late 70s, early 80s? Were they?
I might have one right behind me. Yeah.
I remember reading the Iron Man one and really liking it. That was 14, 15, somewhere around there.
Yeah, it's not from the same area you're talking about, but this is supposedly by Stan Lee. Oh, he edited.
You always have to say supposedly when you say Stan Lee.
I think this is 3 stories. I read more of the DC books that came out. Hopefully, I've got. Yeah, this is what I was looking for. This is where I was introduced to knowing who Elliot S. Megan was.
Ah, okay. The Answer, was he the Answer Man
I think he was. Yeah, yeah.
at DC? I remember that column. I don't remember who I think
I don't know if he was because I saw a picture of. Well, the problem is that the Answer Man had those glasses and that mustache and the curly hair. And
but it was signed. It had the name.
Oh, okay. I'll look it up.
I don't remember if it was him or maybe Bob Rozakis or somebody. There was somebody in the office who used to answer those.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into this box now. I'm ready to show a whole bunch more stuff.
Scott Connor waited 3 hours in line to meet Steranko. I feel like I am still in that line.
Man.
Friar Tuck believes he's also a very flawed but likable guy. I've got a partial run of Eclipse Airboy. I bought that kind of off and on.
I need to check it out. I mean, I read a couple of issues of Airboy, and it didn't grab me like it has everyone else, you know.
I remember liking it. Like when it was coming out in the 80s, it was a bi-weekly book, so that was a bit of a fun thing. I'm
not even going to question Paulo. Yeah.
Yeah, it may have been Bob Rozakis. That was the other name that was in my head. I really don't remember if he or Elliot S. Magan may have had another column at some time at DC. I can't remember, but the Answer Man could have been Bob Rozakis.
Well, we're going to do this together.
You're looking up who the Answer Man is?
Yeah, I know Paulo's right, but I got to know.
He's got to know. I gots to know. Do you know where that line is from? I gots to know.
I've heard so much. I didn't know it came from somewhere.
Everybody knows the line before it, the lines before it, but that line never gets quoted.
Where's
it comes right after Clint Eastwood saying the 44 Magnum is the most powerful gun. And in all this confusion, I'm not sure if I shot 6 shots or only 5. The question you have to ask yourself, punk, is do you feel lucky?
I even had that on DVD. I had to go back and look.
And then after the guy gives up and doesn't give the guy looks at him and goes, I gots to know. I always liked that line.
Here's how you know you've made it, right? In pop culture is when you have your own Wikipedia page. The Answer Man, I think he has his own Wikipedia page down here.
There you go.
Yeah, look at that. Bob Roskus has it, but the Answer Man, his ego, has his own, apparently, yeah.
Writer of Amazing Man.
Man. Amazing
Which
Man.
we mentioned here before, haven't we, Amazing Man?
Mm-hmm.
I have to reread that one day. I've got my issues on the shelf. I probably haven't read it since like 1987 or whenever it came out.
Well, I'm noticing we've got like some taglines here. Like, I need to go back and read that. I haven't read it since the 70s or 80s.
Plenty of those.
If we get T-shirts made of this, that's what it's going to be. I haven't read that in a while, you know. I got to go back and read that.
Using it 20 years ago. Yeah, there was bulletin boards were big in the 90s for comics. Back before the World Wide Web was a big thing, there were bulletin boards everywhere and the AOL boards. All right. And of course, the other thing I'm trying to read, I say trying, Bottomless Belly Button, because it's not as good as I'd like it to be. This came out in, what year was this? 2007, 2008. And this was kind of an indie darling book back in 2008. It won awards and got good reviews everywhere. It's by someone named Dash Shaw. I don't know why they don't put his name on it on the front. And I'm reading, and it's pretty... It's a pretty quick read, most of it, because there's just a lot of drawings and stuff. There's stuff, but it's kind of, I have to say, it's about a family, the Looney family, okay. And the the sort of matriarch and patriarch, the grandmother and grandfather, are getting a divorce after 45 years of marriage or something. So the whole family's out at the beach house for them announcing they're getting the divorce. There's the mother and father. There's 3 kids, an older brother, middle sister, and a younger brother. For some reason, the younger brother is drawn as a frog. I just have to. Everybody else is drawn as people. He's drawn as this frog character. Where is he? There he is there, blowing his nose. I'm not quite sure why he's drawn that way. But the main problem is the drawing, is the storytelling, I should say. Let me see if I can find an example of it. It's obviously the drawing is not the best drawing in the world. But sometimes, like, I can understand when you're doing a book this big, you're just drawing. You just want to get it out. So you're not the best artist in the world. You want to do something. You want to draw it. I'm fine with that. But then you better make up for that with your storytelling.
Yeah.
And he does not make up with it with the story. Let me show you something that drives me bonkers. He describes things in his panels rather than draw them.
Oh, the tell instead of show thing. Yeah. Oh.
It's worse than that. It's not even he puts sound effects in, like that's not even a, like, this isn't even a bad one. I'm saying it's got like her hooking her seatbelt and he's got fasten, unfasten written there. It's like you can't actually draw someone. It's tough drawing someone hooking their seatbelt. So he just puts words in instead, and he did that for some. Let me see if I'm looking for an especially egregious spot. There's a couple of them, but the book is so big, it's tough to find an especially egregious spot because it only happens so often. That's when something really tough to draw comes up. And he's like, I'm not even going to draw it. I'm just going to put in slam door. Oh, well, you don't need to see the bad parts anyway. But like I said, I just wish it was better. I mean, it's not terrible. I just wish it was better. I found myself that there are spots where I just found myself flipping pages because there are spots where there's not much going on. He's got the old man opening a pill bottle. And these drawings kind of express nothing about an old man opening a pill bottle. So it was kind of like frustrating at times. It's like, if you expect me to spend time with these drawings, you better spend some time with these drawings and think about them. Like I said, I don't mind a simple style. I don't mind if the drawing isn't the best drawing, but I don't think he thought about his storytelling enough.
Right.
And that's kind of what bothers me about it. But other than those bad things I said about it, it's not horrible. That's the best I can say. It's like, here's a guy feeding his fish. Who wants to spend their time with that page of this guy feeding a fish that's not done in a very interesting way? So it's kind of like, I'm not against. I love slice of life stuff. I love small moment stuff. But you better have some sort of observation or skill in expressing that small moment to me. That's what I think this book is missing.
Well, my knee, not anybody asked, my knee-jerk reaction to is what you saw there. I saw like some Hernandez brothers in there and stuff. It's almost like that sort of felt like somebody writing what they thought an alternative indie comic should have been. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that's what it is, but I mean, just getting the smell of it and seeing those few pages, I'm like, it's not so much he has a story to tell. It's just that he's like read a whole bunch of indie books and he's just regurgitating what he thought one should be.
And I think that's why it got so much attention and won so many awards. Is it's what people think an indie comic should be. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's about a family. It's about a messed up family. That's just, this could be, it's very literary. in that even though there's not a ton of words in it, literary, it's about, a messed up family and each of them on their own little journey that's really meaningless. But it's just not that interestingly done is the problem. I wonder. It's like I never hear of this cartoonist anymore. Like this was very well received. I mean, the reason I know of it is because, like I said, it made all the end of year best of lists and stuff like that.
Well, first of all, it looked like it was a minimalism approach, and that was actually a thing that was going on in the 2000s.
Listen, I have no problem with that aspect of it, but you better make it interesting.
Yeah.
When you make minimalism is not easy. When you make a minimalist drawing, you've got to try and make it interesting somehow.
My next comment was, I'm not putting that down. I'm just saying.
Right.
With what was probably out that year, I don't think the thing may not have had stiff competition. It might have just been the right place, right time. Who knows? But minimalism is, if it's bad, it's good or bad. To me, there's no in between. Like you were saying, it's either interesting or it's not. You can't win.
And it also can be esoteric minimalism, because my favorite minimalist artist, who influenced my own stuff, is a guy named Ad Reinhardt. A.D. Reinhardt.
I think you've told me before.
Right, and he's a 60s guy, 1960s guy, and he made these paintings that are just that he made them so you couldn't reproduce them. And what he was doing with most of his career was he was and if you don't know this, you don't know. That's why it becomes esoteric. If you don't know this, you don't know what the painting's about, kind of thing, which is a hindrance when looking at the painting. He was trying to strip away everything from art that was extraneous. So he ended up with these paintings that were 9 black squares.
Oh, yes. I know what you're talking about.
And if you were to take a picture of them, it would just be a big black thing. And they're like, I think they're like 9 feet by 9 feet. So they're big canvases. But he did not use black paint. He would mix color together until it became black, which is what happens. So it's this deep, rich black. And he would also use very little binder or oil in his oil paint. So when you actually see, like if you see a picture of them, they're useless. But if you see one in person and know what it is, it's like the deepest, richest black, and the surface is almost like a powder. And you can walk, and it's like this black you can peer into. That's just crazy. So when you see one in person, it's really an amazing, and you know what's going on. It's really an amazing thing to see. But if you don't know that,
I remember I took like one class one time of art history or art appreciation. I don't know what it was. It was this time it was really for a credit. I actually was starting out as an art major, but this is one of the classes I took for the credit. And I remember I'm pretty sure they brought up the painting you just talked about, but the one they had beside it was like a straight black line, a straight red line, and a parallel yellow line. And they got into the fact that he drew those lines so straight by hand, and they tried to convince us why that was art. And I'm like, this looks like something to be on a dress Mary Tyler Moore would wear with some go-go boots, Well,
that's where the dress came from. Mondrian. It sounds like you're describing Mondrian, who's the guy who used the lines and blocks of color.
Yeah.
But he was the guy it's like he influenced so much stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I didn't appreciate what I was hearing. I was just sort of like, I don't know. They just went so far defending it. They put it out in your head when you had none. That's what I'm trying to get at. You're like, let's hear about it.
A lot of this can be esoteric. You need to learn certain things about it before you can appreciate it. That's just the way art is sometimes, which is annoying because I don't want to put in the work to like your painting. But sometimes when you do, it's good. Sometimes it's not.
Well, the last painting, yeah.
My favorite Mondrian story that I was told by one of my art history professors was named Irving Sandler. And he was the New York art historian of the 50s. So he was the guy, famous art historian. And he would tell a story. I think he got this story secondhand. It's not his story, from one of his art history buddies. But the way Mondrian used to do his sketches for his paintings that were black lines and blocks of color was he'd use tape. So he'd use like black electrical tape that's how he'd do his sketches to get where he wanted the line to go. So Mondrian was having a party once in his studio, and he had one of his sketches was on his easel. So one of his friends, as a goof, went over there and took the black tape and moved it down half an inch.
Ah.
So then the party's going on, and all of a sudden Mondrian looks over at his easel, at his sketch on it, stops for a moment, walks over, takes the tape off, and moves it up half an inch. So it's like that's how much these guys worked on this stuff. That didn't just that's why minimalism is so much work that people don't realize. So when you're going with a minimalist approach, that doesn't mean there's less work. But I guess, like I said, the approach here is I want to make a big book. Like comics are so much work. To draw a book this big is so much work that he was just like, all right, I'm just going to draw. And I can understand that. He's like, I'm not going to fuss over each little drawing. I'm just going to keep going. But when you do that, your storytelling better be good. And if it's not, you can be in trouble. I think this book is in trouble.
Yeah, if you get to the end, I really want to hear about it real quick.
Yeah, we'll see. Like there's one. I was actually thankful there were no words, and I just started flipping pages. That's not a good sign.
Since we're talking about high art, let me take a minute here just to kind of show this. I'll get it off my mind here. Just if I can share it. Did it pop up?
Edward Hopper.
Yeah, this is the picture for me that I've actually done research, and I was actually trying to follow people on the internet as much as I could because people have tried to find this diner street corner with clues and stuff. And to me, this is one of those pictures that just grabbed me since I was a kid. And yeah. So to me, I like that art that sets a mood and you can't put your finger on it. And the more you look at it, the more you can. Like it's called the Nighthawks, and people thought it was about loneliness. Well, Nighthawks is a predatory bird, and if you look at this guy right here, if it's shown sitting there, he's got a beak on him of a nose.
This there's a reason this painting's a classic. It captures something.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, Edward Hopper is local to me. He's from Nyack, New York, which is in the county I live. Matter of fact, there's a Hopper House museum dedicated to him in Nyack, which I've never been to. I don't know why.
Yeah. And I was also a Pollock fan since second grade. Found it in an encyclopedia, and I was like, what is this? But anyway.
Did you read the Jackson Pollock biography that was big in the 90s that they made the movie out of?
I don't know if it's the one you're talking about. I've read 2 books on him back in the 90s.
It's a big, thick biography.
Probably not that one. But I read 2 books. One book, Edward Hopper was in it, but it talked about other artists. The other one, I'll have to look up. Probably not the one I don't know if it's the one if it's real thick, I didn't read that one. No, but
it's big. It was good though.
Yeah, the cigarettes and the paintings, and it was interesting. I think they made a movie. Was it Hal? Was that about Jackson Pollock, or was that a poet they were talking about?
They made a movie called Pollock in the late 90s based on this book.
Yeah. There was Pollock, the movie. Then I'm thinking about a poet in the book. The movie was called Howl, Howl. Anyway, we're getting all high art here, man. I don't know how long I'll be able to keep up. Yeah, I don't know how long I'll be able to keep up with you. But get back to comics a little bit here and stuff. Here's the 2 things that are probably my next. I don't know.
What do you got there? Preview showcase.
Yeah, the first one is Nightmaster. DC Showcase. This is 1968 or 69. Bernie
Your
Wright.
volume got lower again. Move closer to that mic.
I'm noticing if anything gets between me and Mike, it can't even hold up.
Yeah.
But this is early Bernie Wrightston published art in the 60s. And it's the Nightmaster, right? But what happened was, and I don't want to talk about it too much because I can't, I'm going blank. I've always meant to back up and find these issues. But this character, Nightmaster, ended up being taken by one of the creators to 2 other companies and had his name changed. And I think he became the Nightmaster. Ended up he got big there for a little bit, not big, but people knew who he was now because they put him in a book called Shadow Pact.
Okay,
with the Blue Devil and stuff. But he was taken from, the way I remember it, and I've always, like I said, I've always wanted to go down and deal with this, is he was taken and he was put into another company, like an indie company or something in the 70s. But in the late 70s and early 80s, he ended up in the Defenders. And I can't think of his name, but he had
who wrote that?
That's what I'm saying. I think it's Denny O'Neil, but I'm not sure.
No, because I'm thinking of the character. What's his name? I think David Anthony Kraft, who we mentioned last week, wrote. He did. There was an Atlas comic called Demon Hunter.
That's it. That's it. That's him. This is.
And then he made his way. Then he made his way into the Defenders as Devil Hunter, and he had a cape that he could pull in weapons out. I didn't know he was there too.
It's all from this character. The Devil Hunter, you just put a red X on his outfit for his sash. You know what I'm saying? They're all the same character. And
did David Anthony Kraft write that one too?
I don't know if he did. I think O'Neill's got his name on this. But like I said, this might be after he came out. But this is one of those things I've been meaning since the 90s to research, look up, and get these books. And I ran across this like in a quarter box, and I went, oh yeah,
because I know the Devil Hunter, Demon Hunter is pretty well known. I've read that before. Even though as a kid I discovered it myself because I've had both those books. But I'd never heard there was a DC book in the lines too.
Yeah, this is where it all started. But this is a Denny O'Neil written one, so maybe left or something. But yeah, that character has jumped through 3 companies, and I always wondered if they did this with Mantis. Steve Englehart did this with Mantis. He called her Willow or something in DC or something. Anyway, but Mantis has jumped. Steve Englehart has taken Mantis through other companies.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So if you want the full story on Mantis, you've got to figure out what he's doing and travel around. I love that stuff.
Mantis's powers were always too vague for me. I was never a fan of vague powers as a kid. I like my powers well defined.
Yeah. When she turned up green in the Silver Surfer and had her coming out of trees, it looked like she was, making a vulva to walk out of them. I was a little taken back as a teen. I was, what's going on with Mantis? I thought she was married to the Swordsmaster. I was like, I missed something here.
Oh, you never read the Celestial Madonna story?
Yeah, I have them. The Giant Size Avengers were some of the books already in my house. I read them and I got through there. And again, it's kind of like the actual concept of Dark Phoenix. I never got it. It wasn't defined enough for me to know what the big deal was. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Big deal. Like this is going to bring a lot of change, and never went. And the last book I got here is Manhunter 2070.
I don't know that I've ever seen that one either.
Just a few issues of this character and stuff. I think he's a bounty hunter, but it's like the art and stuff. I like old sci-fi. You know what I mean?
That looks like a Joe Kubert pose on that cover.
It's not signed, but I don't think it's Kubert, man. It's around the
The pose looks like it because he could always draw dead guys like that, really rubbery kind of dead.
Mm-hmm. But these are like just obscure characters that popped up. Yeah. But my thing when I try to recommend books to people that want to get into like Bronze Age and kind of Silver Age, I always defend DC saying everything but their superhero books were awesome. You know what I mean?
Okay, now there was at DC, there was the Manhunters. That was Jack Kirby, right?
Yeah. There
was Manhunter. That was Walt Simonson. Who is Manhunter 2070? How does he fit in with the other Manhunters?
I'm gonna have to look it up because I've just heard him mention. This is what I'm saying. These are.
You haven't read it yet?
No. I've just got one book a piece. These are my new endeavors. These are things that I put off looking up or getting into, or I'd hear like things. The Nightmaster was the big one because he went through 3 companies. That's my. Right. The Manhunter is just out of curiosity. Manhunter 2070 because there's only a few books.
Who does it?
That's what I'm trying to look up. There's no credits in it. This is
no credits. Still no stupid credits. DC.
It's 1970, And what's bad is I recognize the style. It's going to kill me when I find out who did this because I mean, I recognize the
You
style.
should know.
Yeah, I completely say I should know. It looks like the guy who did Space Knights, Atomic Knights. I mean,
Oh, okay.
I recognize the line work and
Mike Sikowski, maybe.
maybe I don't
I
know.
don't know who's inking him. Look a
But,
little Mike Sikowski.
but what I like about it are the blacks. I like it when
Oh yeah.
you get like this Silver Age style, and they start bringing in the moods and the blacks and stuff.
They start spotting their blacks real well.
Yeah, that's why I like those Denny O'Neil Wonder Woman issues where he took her powers from. I love the covers because they use the blacks just right. The ones like the Executioner standing over and stuff. I love that.
Oh,
stuff.
that's the Jeffrey Jones cover, right?
Yeah.
Mike Sikowski drew some of those too.
He might, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I love that kind of artwork where they know how to use their blacks and it gives it weight and a mood. And the more you look at it, the more you're like, this is great. But that's where we're at. Those are my two new endeavors. I mean, that and getting some more tardy, you know.
I'm actually going to the comic shop today to get some new comics.
Awesome.
And one of the things I'm getting is I think there's a new Savage Dragon. There's a new Birthright. Let me look at my list. I've got it in email here. What is coming? Oh crap, this is my my email that won't show me the actual list on there. Let me look at my iPad email. I'll tell you what I'm going to get at the comic shop. I'm going to make a video of it too, but we'll give you a quick preview. What's coming in today? Do you have a local comic shop anymore, Tim?
Nah. It's about I don't know, hour 20 minutes away from where I'm at to the most close one that I can think of. It's in Bristol, Tennessee, Virginia, Tennessee, Empire. And then Roanoke, which is probably 2.5 hours from here. They've all shut down over the last 2 weeks, anything in between those.
What's cool about my local comic shop is I get an email every week on final order cutoff, and it tells me what's coming in. So it's like I can order. I can order like whatever comics I want just by clicking an email link.
It is indeed Sikowski. Scott Connor's right on it.
All right.
Friar Chuck, that'd be great if that somehow relates to the other DC Manhunters. I was always a fan of the Manhunters. I don't know what his deal, but my favorite one is Golden Age one with the blue mask. What James Robinson did with him in the Golden Age was perfect. Made him like just a great white hunter and all this stuff.
Goon number 10 is out this week.
Nice.
I got Savage Dragon, Outcast, Goon number 10, Birthright, and Famous First Edition New Fun number 1, which I'm kind of looking forward to. That's the remember those Famous First Editions DC did in the 70s? They're putting out one for their very first comic, New Fun.
Oh, that's
and I think it's in black and white and hardcover. So,
oh wow.
Yeah, I'll be picking that up today.
Yeah, I was ready to get my bottom shelf and pull out a couple of those first editions for you. You know, I was like, oh, yeah, caught myself.
Do you have the New Fun one? I think they put that out in the 70s.
I'll check it out. Like I said, when it comes to new books, I dig through the guides of what's coming out in 2 months from here and there. And a lot of stuff really doesn't catch my eye. I really wish I could get my hands on it and flip through it so I could, decide if I want to get it. I think the big book that's coming out that I have low expectations for, but I'm down for it, is Peter David and Dale Keown putting out a mini series on the origin of the Maestro.
Right. They're continuing the Maestro story.
I think they're going to tell the story that happens in between how nuclear war happened and how the rise of the Maestro happened and the deaths of the heroes is what I understand. It's how we got there. By the time Hulk finds them, we get the story in between.
But that's something that doesn't interest me in the least, but at least the talent on board interests me. So
I love Future Imperfect, but it was unapologetic. It was bartered. Yeah. It was the third Mad Max movie unapologetically.
Right. You know, I actually like it too. It's a fun story, which is why I'm not a fan of prequels. I'm not a fan of how we got there stories. Yeah. Just write me a story. We're there. Write me a story.
I had that reaction too. First thing, like, why can't we get new Maestro? You know what I mean? I was like, but we're getting what we got. But
right.
I went ahead and I decided I'm going to pre-order it next month because one of the variant covers is by George Perez, and you're going to be seeing less and less of his stuff. You know what I mean? Like, we're at the end.
Did Perez draw the first one?
Yeah, he did the miniseries.
Yeah, he did that, right? Okay, yeah. For some reason, I thought Dale Keown did for a minute.
Peter David and what did he else? Saxon Violence. I think that was a Perez. And Peter David.
Yeah,
Peter David and George Perez is a great team that never blossomed. They would have been awesome together on some other stuff. If they really got on a book together and went long run, those two, I think they melded really well. They were so good, nobody noticed how good they were because there were no flaws. You know what I'm saying? You read the book, you read the story, the art told the story, it was great. And when you put it down, you're like, man, that's good. You didn't question why it was good. They were great.
George Perez officially retired, I think, but he's one of those. He said he's one of those guys you don't have to worry about because he made a lot of money. He's got a lot of money still coming in. He's got some evergreens.
When I met him, I was so glad that he was authentically that nice. When he hugged me, I tell the story. He hugged me so hard, I got beard burn on my face. He scratched me with his stubble. And what am I sitting here doing? I'm sitting there giving a thumbs up in the picture, but I'm thinking, I hope his genetics getting me so I can draw. You know, I was like,
I've never met George Perez.
He's
got a good reputation.
He was awesome. It was authentic. I mean, you can tell what I'm saying. He's just a nice person. He's into S&M, though. He goes to a lot of S&M conventions, which is why I unfollowed him on Facebook. I wasn't getting comic book stuff from him. I was getting all these S&M conventions he was at with all these girls in leather and plastic. And I'm like, nothing wrong with it. I don't need to be in McDonald's swiping my screen and everybody's seeing this stuff. You know what I mean?
Seeing the weird stuff that's coming up.
Yeah. Well, man, I need to wind it down here. And I think it went well today. I got to go, so.
You got to go. Where are you off to today?
It's not that I'm going anywhere. Everything, my plans got canceled because of the rain. But if I show this room, it's time for me to do stuff with it.
It's got things. I still have boxes of comics from my friend Jerry out in the garage that I have to go through that I just haven't yet. Yeah. I don't know why. I just haven't. Well, one of the reasons why it's not in comic boxes. That makes it a lot harder to go through.
Oh, man. What is this? Yeah. And everybody's getting up. I got to get up and cook, eat, and to do this room. And I'm doing a podcast tonight. I was telling you about a live stream on another.
Right.
Yeah.
We got another podcast coming up.
Yeah, that's about it.
Well, I'll be making my video after I get back from the comic shop, but I already made a no pull list video this week. Now I'm going to make a pull list video.
Awesome. All right. So keep an eye out for Jared's video there. And I might tweet out. I don't use Twitter that much, but a lot of people that watch do. I might tweet out the podcast at 8:00 tonight on the channel I'll be on. And I might hit you up tomorrow. I don't know. I know you told me your schedule for in the morning with what you're doing. If I throw out a random thing, if you answer, cool. If not,
sure, let me know.
All right. All right. Thanks for everybody popping up here, but I got to eat.
We still have to go through the back half of Planetary.
Yeah, I know. I'm keeping the box here behind me for whenever.
But man, you put my name in, which is Jared Osborne, and you can find my channel.
Jared Osborne.
I should put my whole name in. Yeah. OSBORN. It's just my name.
And I tell you what, I do recommend going back and watching some other episodes of Cavern Chaos here. It's like the only videos I'm really making and stuff. But Jared's got an interesting history when it comes to comics and stuff. We talk about it here and there. Do some digging on him. Nothing. Don't throw him in the Hudson River. I'll feel bad.
I don't want the tide to get me.
All right, guys. I'll check y'all later. Bye bye.
Bye bye.